Hey guys, Paul here. So I know it's been a while since I've made one of these topical discussion videos, but recent events in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG sort of prompted me to do so. The topic of this video is basically that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game of war crimes. Yu-Gi-Oh! Players are war criminals. You're probably wondering, okay, what do I mean by that? Well, here's the context. YCS Anaheim happened this past weekend, and we're going to take a little quick look at what happened in the finals. So this is Kamal Crooks versus Cameron Neal. Kamal's playing Crystron K9. Cameron's playing Mitsurugi Yumi. You don't have to know a bunch about these decks, but here's the gist of what's going on. So he used this monster called Artifact Dagda, which set Artifact Mjolnir from his deck. He was able to use a Crystron card to pop it, and then use this Xyz monster, Imperial Princess Quinquiri, to special summon the Artifact Mjolnir to Cameron's side of the field. This might seem like it's not a big deal, but when Artifact Mjolnir gets special summoned during the opponent's turn, and it was special summoned to Cameron's field during his opponent's turn, it activates and will special summon an artifact monster back from the graveyard. It actually has to activate, and even though Cameron doesn't have any artifact monsters to summon, it still tries to. And then after resolving, Artifact Mjolnir says you cannot special summon monsters until the end of the next turn. So, in addition to dealing with whatever crazy field that Kamal ends up making here, Cameron's not going to be able to special summon on his next turn. In fact, just to add insult to injury, he even activated this Molcharmi Fuwalos earlier in the turn, and it got hit with Droll and Lockbird, so he can't even hope to maybe draw a board breaker type of card or anything to have much of an out to this. And so Kamal ends up winning this game. I'll just spoil the rest of the finals. In game 2, Cameron goes first and wins. And then in game 3, this exact same combo happens. He uses Artifact Dagda once again, summons Mjolnir once again. Cameron's locked out. He concedes. Everybody cheers. Kamal wins. Great, cool, fun. Congratulations to him. So, here's the problem. This might feel familiar to you if you've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For a while. Even though the sort of set dressing is a bit different, Artifact Dagda and Mjolnir and like this Imperial Princess card, the truth is, we've seen this before, haven't we? Like, you might remember Albion the Sanctifier Dragon and Branded Expulsion, cards that can summon a monster to both players' sides of the field. And so it sounds kind of like Ido the Supreme Magical Force, or Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, or Ra's Disciple. This same sort of thing where, we summon an exploitative, old, random monster that has some kind of a summon lock to our opponent, and it prevents them from playing. Another similar combo, actually, that happened in the same top 8 and plenty of times, I'm sure, during this tournament, is the Evil Swarm Ouroboros hand loop, where basically your opponent can use Evil Swarm Ouroboros, this old Xyz monster, use its effect several times during the course of one turn to rip a card out of your hand. It's an old monster, it doesn't have a hard once return, so they can summon it, pull a card, send it to the grave, summon it back, pull another card, then maybe summon it again or copy its effect from the grave. And now they've ripped 3 or even more in some cases cards from your hand before you even get to start your turn. And again, this is familiar, isn't it? Like right now, the Code of Pain is like Ryziel, Automat, or something like that. But it sounds a lot like Trishula hand loops, right? Or Psyframe Lord Omega hand loops, right? Or Mulan Glacia, or Dark World Silva, or whatever. Because at the end of the day, this is a foundational thing with Yu-Gi-Oh! It's the fact of the matter is, when players are given the ability to, access a wide range of cards and like there aren't really restrictions on what they can do, it's only natural that people will gravitate towards the plays and the combos that completely lock their opponent out of the game and like skip their turn ideally. You see this so much. I mean, we just actually had that one card, Paradise Smasher, get banned, but even after it's banned, we have just like kind of moved on to the next thing. And so the major point that I want to make here is that this isn't kind of a matter of like a problem just today or a problem that just happened last year. Yu-Gi-Oh! Players fundamentally will always gravitate towards these strategies. And until Konami sort of changes the way that cards are designed on a base level and the way that they approach ban lists, I think it's just going to continue to happen. Because as fun as it sounds for the two of us to have an interactive duel, I play some cards, you play some cards, I play some cards, you play some cards, we make chains and there's decision making and interactivity and we're grinding, it would be a lot easier if you just shut down all my cards, right? And that's where floodgates come from. I mean, if it's not Baguska, it's Abyss Dweller. If it's not Abyss Dweller, it's something like True King of All Calamities, Outer Entity, Azathoth, Hot Red Dragon King Calamity. All these cards that have found their way onto the ban list, sure, but it feels like there's always just a new one ready to take their place. It's why people will flip up anti-spell fragrance, or there can be only one, or skill drain, or just kind of whatever, right? Imperial Order, dimensional barrier. The list goes on and on and on and on. And I think that at some point, players just have to accept the fact that, like, and I say players as in, like, people who maybe say, like, ban just this one thing or ban another thing. This is just Yu-Gi-Oh! At the end of the day, prevention is always going to be better than dealing with your opponent's cards on a, like, card by card basis. It sounds fun to, like, answer your card with my card and we kind of go back and forth, but when you're in the finals of a tournament like this, of course you're going to just take the route that says, my opponent can't play. We will skip this game. We will skip this turn. And there are so many of these that people don't even know about. Like, this is kind of a high profile one now, but I honestly dare people to start playing Master Duel and just sort of, like, you'll find some of the worst of the war crimes in the random bowels of, like, ranked play. I have had somebody who used that Amor Factor Pain, the ritual monster that skips your opponent's main phase 1, and just skip my main phase over and over and over to where I just could not play any cards, like none whatsoever at all. And it's really wild to think about, because that's, like, not even a deck that's going to be, like, maybe winning tournaments, but it can still do that. Because if there's a way to, like, obnoxiously just force your opponent out of being able to breathe, you would rather do that than risk interacting with them. Even the Droll Lockbird example, right? Like, if you're playing against a Malice deck, Malice is overwhelmingly strong, so the best answer to dealing with Malice is to use a card like Artifact Lancia or maybe Chaos Hunter and completely stop them from being able to start. Because, like, them even starting generates too much advantage and too much threat. So, like, I'm just going to say, okay, well, you just can't banish your cards this turn. Like, you cannot banish cards. You have to skip your turn, end it, pass back to me, so I get a chance to play. And by get a chance to play, it really means beat you in that one turn so that you don't ever get to. And, like, I think that what Konami is going to have to do is kind of twofold. This is one issue, is just the whole, like, turn skips and floodgates. A similar issue that people have been talking about too is the bridge problem, where effectively a deck can kind of bridge its way into another deck by using usually some card like King of the Feral Imps, which was recently banned, but also there are plenty of others like Infernal Flame Banshee or something like that, where it's like an Xyz monster that just takes 2 level 4s and then it can search the 1 card starter for the next engine and the next play kind of line of play. We see it a lot with Fiendsmith, where they finally had to ban Moon of the Closed Heaven because Moon of the Closed Heaven was a pretty easy monster to make, and then it was a light Fiend monster, so it could make it just allowed any deck to go into the Fiendsmith combo. And there's, like, we could go into the finer details, but this has happened before. Like, this exact same thing, we saw Nightmare Mermaid being able to lead to a full Orcust combo way back in 2019. Like, any time that there's an Xyz monster or a Link monster that's very generic and easy to make, people will abuse it. The same thing happened with Predaplant Vert Anaconda. The same thing happened with, like, Crystron Halki Fibrax. I just need some kind of a tuner and I'm good. And, cards like Zombie Vampire sort of do, they exist in that same vein. And so I think what Konami is going to have to start doing, and I know that they're aware of it, because if you look at Genesis format, like, they're aware that the broken stuff exists. They know what it is, and they kind of can try to curb it in that format. But I think that for advanced Yu-Gi-Oh!, Konami has got to start working on making meaningful amounts of Xenolocks into decks. By Xenolocks, I just mean, when you use this archetype's card, you can only summon monsters of this archetype for the rest of the turn. And it doesn't have to necessarily be that strict. Sometimes it could just be like locking you into wind monsters, locking you into, a certain type, or maybe a certain extra deck type. Like, okay, Branded Fusion at least only locks you into, like, fusion monsters for the turn, so you can't also then make Xyz and Links and stuff like that. It's a start, but I think they have to do that more with these archetypes, because you might notice that, like, Fiendsmith doesn't have any locks to it. I know it's not the most popular engine today currently, but, like, it was for the past year. And also, Ryziels suspiciously don't actually have that many locks on them until you sort of choose to give them that. And decks like Tearlaments and Kashtira from the past years, no locks on them. A lot of archetypes and, like, decks and cards would benefit from locking you into summoning types and archetypes and things like that, so that we are not just, like, bridging from one very powerful deck to another. Because this isn't a matter of me saying just Yu-Gi-Oh! Power creep is bad. Some of the times, this is, like, old cards. Like, Artifact Mjolnir is a nothing card. It's just a random old common from, like, 10 years ago. It's just that when you have no locks on anything, you conveniently will find ways to just make the link monster or something that summons the thing that you need from the deck, and then like you carry on and lock your opponent out. Like, I think the third sort of major point here is like link monsters. I've always felt that they've been a bit of a mistake in Yu-Gi-Oh! I think that they are far too generic. I mean, Artifact Dagda's materials are like two monsters with different names. So what do you do when like any deck can just make Artifact Dagda? If it just has a way to pop Mjolnir and then bring Mjolnir back, well, there you go. And like, what do you ban in these scenarios? I guess you ban Artifact Dagda, but then that means like artifacts don't get to have their link monster. But it's like, well, Konami, maybe you shouldn't have made the link monster take literally a piece of string and glue. And like, it's like, this I think is an issue that Yu-Gi-Oh! Itself is going to have to wrestle with forever. The card pool is huge. There are a lot of cards that you can sort through. They're like old, and as long as you can find some way to tutor it out from your deck, it could lead to an entire lock. Konami's done a better job recently of hitting Floodgate cards, and I have to commend them for at least that much, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And when you put these cards in front of players, they will always kind of take the low road in a high-stakes tournament. I'm not blaming anybody here. I don't think that this is the player's fault. I still think that this kind of goes on Konami to truly balance this game and not just hit old floodgates. Like, sure, we should be hitting, you know, the Droll Lockbirds or like the dimensional barriers or whatever else, but please start locking archetypes up in the future. That's all I ask. I think that until that happens, we will continue to see this again and again and again and again and again. So yeah, that's basically my little rant or ramble about it. I want to know what you guys think. I think a lot of people are like, they're finding out for the first time that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game of war crimes, but it's always been this way. Low tier decks function this way, high tier decks function this way. When you get rid of one problem, it's a, you know, kind of a Cerberus. It's just going to grow another head, or a Hydra, or whatever. I don't know what the analogy is. So yeah, I think that yes, hit the floodgates, but please going forward, prevent more of this from happening in the future. Okay, I've gone on long enough. I want to hear you guys' thoughts about it. What do you think should be done? And yeah. All right. See you in the next one. Bastern.